Hey out there Akronites, welcome once again to Around Akron with Blue Green. Now this episode is literally on fire. I'm gonna meet up with a guy who uses fire to bring his creations of clay to life. I'm gonna meet a group of people who uses fire to manipulate glass into something beautiful. I sit down with Jimi Imij, who uses video to capture those fiery moments on stage. Now to kick this show off today, I'm gonna meet up with Pach Atomz. Now this guy literally paints with fire. You gotta see it to believe it. Let's go see what Pach Atomz is all about.
I've had people just completely dismiss me. And every time those doors shut in my face, I went a little harder in the paint, so to say. And I just kept working at it. At this point, I've been featured in a worldwide art book. I've been featured in a magazine out of Japan, many local blogs that I've been mentioned in. I've been in the local paper over a dozen times. I've been picked for shows in New York several times. I just kept at it, kept pressing at it. You know, I gotta get this work out and just get people to see and understand what I'm doing. I started doing this, or started experimenting with this back in, I don't know, it was probably 2004. I wanted my work to really just be different. I wanted to, what I was envisioning in my head and applying that to, you know, a physical space, it was kind of two different things, because what I was trying to do was not matching what I wanted to do. So I experimented with acrylic paints, oils like the masters did, using panel and just using oils on it, watercolors, colored pencils, things of that nature. And it just didn't have what I was seeing in my mind. And so I just happened to have a few powdered pigments laying around, and I just started mixing and going to my science brain and started mixing these with different things that I could find, different varnishes and things of that nature. I still couldn't figure out what it was until one night I had these little test strips that I was painting on to see if I just testing it out, see if I could figure it out. And I got to the point where I had this little piece of wood that I had painted this stuff on, and it didn't work. So I went to, I had a fire pit in my backyard, and I kind of just tossed it in the fire. And then I noticed, just kind of glanced at it, and I noticed that the color was changing. And I was like, huh. So I went over, grabbed some tongs, I pulled it out before it really got singed. And I'm looking at it. So I threw it back in there, went back into my lab, worked a little more, trying to remember exactly what I did. It was kind of like an aha moment. I figured out a way, or cracked a code, how to paint with fire, like literally. You know, you've got people there's a guy that uses soot from candles, and he does these relief paintings, but he calls it painting with fire. There's the lady who started the whole thing with putting nails in a board, and you hook a car battery up to it, and electricity burns the weakest parts in the wood. She calls it painting with fire. And there's another guy who uses a giant magnifying glass, and he burns these gorgeous images into wood. calls it painting with fire. But what I did was I figured out how to mix acrylics, oils, mostly pigments, in a way that makes them flammable. What I did was I took one of the oldest art forms known to man, which is wood burning, and I modernized it by adding color. So when I say I paint with fire, I literally paint with fire. I put my colors in place, I use a Bic lighter, set it on fire, and the whole thing will burn, or I'll do little spot burns to create different effects, make different textures or whatever, and it just comes out beautiful. And the way that I do it in layers. I put a base coat on, do some fire painting there. I call it pyrochromatic arts. Pyro meaning fire, chromatic comes from color, fire color. I just love to do the work when it comes down to it. I just, I want to be able to be comfortable and just, sit down at my art desk and create stuff. Make the world beautiful one piece at a time.
Next up, amateur archivist Jimi Imij, who's been capturing live bands' fire on stage for years. You gotta check this one out.
It takes time, and I'm enjoying spending my time doing it. I think, not that I need to be known, but the bands need to be known in the future. I always wanted to be able to produce something that would be used in a classroom of some form, or be part of supplying the materials that someone's idea, where they can teach a music class for whatever grade level or reason, like maybe it's in a music class, or maybe it's in a history class, or maybe it's in a local community understanding class, whatever it could be adapted to. And I've wanted to do that, or be part of getting it to classes to use, this information that I'm archiving. Well, I started the archives, the Ohio Hysterical Music Society, Atomz, in 1996, I believe. And I just had a big box of cassette tapes of local bands and some Ohio bands, not so local, but Ohio bands. And I'm like, well, nobody really cares about this but me, it seems, so I need to do something. So I found a person who could digitize them, and over a course of time, Matt Lindsay helped me digitize a bunch of tapes that I had, and that was the beginning. And then I had the Kent Stater, I had the Beacon Journal, a couple local music magazines interview me about it. So that kind of formulated it for me that this is something I'm going to do. And it went from just trying to save my tapes to start asking all my friends, well, what do you have? What do you have left? If you're lucky, you're maybe like this, but then if you're not lucky, you're like kind of, it's up here, you're trying to catch it. Hopefully it's got a view screen, you can see what you're doing. Like this, its view screen is an eyeball size, so you're like, okay, I see a post, I see the roof, okay, keep it there. And I've never bought a camera. Actually, I bought a mini DV that didn't last very long. I still use it for transferring. It don't play, but it allows me to interact between one camera and the computer. So I use it, but it's a workaround. But I never bought a camera. People have always loaned me or given me. And once I started doing this, I had more than one person say, hey, I got this old VH camera, still works. I'm never going to use it. Why don't you just take it in case you need it? The The Akron Sound Museum is where I would say you could go to see what I have archived, as well as the things they have archived of their own. They have a lot more like items, like shirts and things people had, maybe guitars or things, actual things the bands themselves have donated, where not a lot of my stuff has actually came from bands. Some has. But even when they give me their work, they're actually giving me twice as much of other bands that they had recorded or something. So at some point, I guess I'll go into the future with a fantasy. I've had this idea that I would love to have something like a bookmobile, that I would drive up in front of, let's say, the Beachland Ballroom a couple hours before the show, and have it all laid out with computers and sound equipment, so you could go in with headphones and listen to a band, watch a band, stacks of flyers and articles, like, or maybe all digital on a screen. But you know, that would take getting a grant from someone who was wanting to preserve. But that would be great to just pull up in this like bookmobile, and you pay $1 to get in for gas, help them with gas, and you go and you experience and you know, look it all up and have it all nicely arranged so it's very easy for the public to use, and have a little time before the band starts or between bands. That's like been a fantasy. I saw a bookmobile for sale once and I was like, oh, an old one. I was like, wouldn't that be great to turn that into the Atomz mobile and travel from show to show? I live in the moment, I work for the future, but I remember the past. The past is why I'm here now, and it is what has given me the thought for what to do tomorrow. So it's very important, you know, because I have people go, oh, that was a long time ago. What do you? Well, yeah, it was a long time ago, and sometimes it was a really good time. And in certain incidences, such as now, people being trapped at home and things, I think it's nice to have some memories of things that were good or fun or enjoyable, or just spark a memory.
Next up, Akron Glass Works. This place is amazing. They use fire to transform glass into the most beautiful objects, and they can teach you how to do it as well. Let's go see what Akron Glass Works is all about.
People are just very excited to come here. They always have a good time, whether they're doing workshops on the weekend, whether they're doing private parties during the week, when they come in with their own friends, and then when they do their own party, they can bring in some food and libations and have a nice time. And but the big thing is we've made a number of changes in here, of course, just like everybody else in the world today. So for those that want to venture out, we've got a pretty safe environment.
We're excited to start doing some more classes again, and we're taking all the necessary precautions, cleaning, social distancing, wearing masks. We're always going to be wearing masks when we're taking classes. But also, we're going to be starting with our pumpkin class, which is a very popular class in the fall. We're going to transition our pumpkin to, instead of being a blown pumpkin, to a solid pumpkin. So the look of the pumpkin won't be a whole lot different, just the process will be a little bit safer because there won't be any actual blowing involved. So it will still be extremely hands-on, but there'll be just that little bit more distance, so we're not you know, sharing germs or contaminating blowpipes. I think that is a really important aspect, but all of the students will still get a very hands-on experience. That's the part that I really enjoy about working with the students, is they really get to use their hands to create their own piece of art.
Fusing classes are a little bit different because we don't all have to make the same project. We gather around a table, we have our tools, we have different types of glass that's in sheets and rods and frit. and I show you how to cut the glass and manipulate it and put it together to create maybe a plate or a sun catcher or a set of wind chimes, set of coasters. We even do jewelry. We use a sparkly kind of glass called dichroic glass for the jewelry. So everybody kind of has their little tutorial and they figure out how to work with the tools, and once they're done with that, then they can kind of go off on their own project. And I have a lot of samples if people don't have ideas. A lot of people come in with Pinterest, which is a blessing and a curse.
It can be a lot for people right at first. It's a little intimidating, but as the class gets started, people really start to get into it, and the fear kind of fades away, and people get really excited about it and have a lot of fun. It's hard to explain because there's such a range of textures and consistency of the glass. It can be extremely fluid like honey, or it can be very solid. And that's another cool part about the classes and the workshops, is that we give people the opportunity to actually see what the consistency feels like through manipulating the glass with the tools. So a lot of times people might expect it to be softer than it is, or more solid than it is. So you really get to see people light up and get excited when they get a chance to really experience that consistency of the glass. So all of our glass, when we're working with it in the hot shop, is anywhere from 1,000 degrees to 2,000 degrees. After we're all done and the glass has turned back into a solid, at the end of the class, the students' work will still be about 900 degrees. So that will go into a special oven that will slowly cool the glass down overnight. So you at least have to wait till the next day, or maybe a couple days before you could come back and pick up your glass creation.
So a couple years ago, we decided to expand into another part of the church, which is the sanctuary upstairs. And it's a beautiful sanctuary with original leaded glass and wood beams, just a gorgeous room. And we're using it as an event space. And so far we've had a couple weddings, we've had some corporate events, different kinds of gatherings, parties. So that is available if somebody's looking for a cool, unique space to have a gathering. We are booking, and we're keeping in mind, smaller size groups and safety.
A big part of what we do here is we offer the glass blowing experience to the public, working with the public. And yet it finally came to me what I was doing. I was working with corporate America, and I was not able to use my creative energies, appetite for the plant business anymore. It's all about money. I know I'm in business. I'm supposed to be about money. I'm a creative person. So that's when it really came to me that I just enjoyed this much more, because I was dealing with individuals. I was just one-on-one. And I know many times Sandy and I will talk, and we are so lucky to be here, because when people come and take a workshop, they are happy. And when they walk out of here, before they get up the top of the ramp, they're on Facebook. They're letting people know. So I get a real big kick out of just allowing people in Akron to have this glass blowing experience.
Now, to wrap this show up today, this is a treat. World known, literally, Woodrow Nash right here in Akron. What can I say? You got to see it to believe it. Let's go see what Woodrow Nash is all about.
An artist, a true artist, when they work, they reveal themselves. You're revealing who you are. And a lot of would-be artists don't want people to know that much about them. And so they hold back. at a certain point, I don't really feel it. I experience what I call timelessness in this. It is time consuming, but I get so involved in it, the whole day is gone without me really noticing it. I've spent a couple of days in here just working at a time. That whole African Nouveau thing that I'm that African sculpture with 18th century French Nouveau is just the fluidity of the piece. Now, I've done European white folks and everything, but there's a couple of galleries, one in Hawaii that, we send European looking, and then I had a request for Asians. But yeah, this right here is the staple because it comes straight through me. I don't have to use references and everything like that. It's like almost like the ancestors are speaking through me and I'm just a vessel that it's coming through. I see things like cheekbones, protruding lips, shoulders, and just just the movement of the body in a wonderful sensual kind of a way. I've always seen these images, African images or black images, depicted in almost a grotesque kind of a look, and I wanted to bring nobility and regalness to the imagery. I started working in clay when I was at Akron U because I always considered myself a painter. So I wanted to explore some other mediums, and I decided that I was going to get into clay. And I learned techniques, mold making and firing and everything like that. And when I decided to become more or less a freelance artist, I walked a number of art shows, and I saw that most of the work that was being done was two-dimensional, and there was no other artist making any statements three-dimensionally in black art. And I decided then that I would just see if I could make a living doing this. I started out making pots and vases and things like that. And over the years, it developed into what it is now, because with the vases, I started putting faces on them, and people was really attracted to that rather than just the plain pots. And it just grew. I started doing small busts, and then I got more elaborate, and it's still evolving. At a certain point, the clay reveals itself to you, and you can anticipate what it's going to do, because there's a certain amount of shrinkage and all that sort of stuff that happens when it's drying and when you're firing it. And so it helps you, me anyway, it helps me create, because when I can visualize what it is that I want to do, I don't have to write it down or draw it down, you know, or anything like that. And so I can have an image in my head of what I want to do, and then I actually solve all the problems that I imagine might come up in doing a certain piece. So it becomes who you are. It's a way of life. It's not what you do, it's who you are. You know.
Thank you once again for watching this episode of Around Akron with Blue Green. Now, if you have any questions or comments, you can reach me on the website at www.aroundakronwithbluegreen.com, or you can catch me on Facebook or on Instagram. Thank you, and have an amazing day.